This female student inherently has the ability to see ghosts. On a particular night, she and her 3 classmates felt bored and went to an empty classroom in their elementary school. At that time, someone proposed to play a game called Four Corners. In this game, first of all, 4 people are required to each stand in a corner of the room. The room must be kept in complete darkness. No lights can be turned on. The first person moves forward and goes to the position of the second person, then taps the shoulder of the second person. Then, the first person will stand in the position of the second person. Next, it's the turn of the second person to go directly to the position of the third person. Tap the shoulder, and so on like this. So, in the end, everyone will move forward 1 spot and meet the person in that corner. Except for the 4th moving person. He will move to the original position of the first person, and the position of the first person should be empty, with no one there. And my classmate, she happened to be the 4th person. Unexpectedly, when she walked back to the position of the first player, it was very strange. She encountered a person. This person was all wet because she was facing his back, so she didn't see the face of the wet person. Theoretically, in her current first base position, there should be no one. Who is this extra wet person? She suddenly realized there was an extra person, so she shouted out loud, "Hey, everyone, I think we should leave." So they all hurried to leave. She only shared up until this point and did not share anything further with us. Only later, in a talk show, from a ghost story by a celebrity shared, I learned that this was actually a ritual for summoning ghosts. The second is when this classmate was studying in Xiaoliuqiu. There were graves in their school. One morning, when she was cleaning in the school, and suddenly saw a hand, and that hand was even making the movement of pulling at her clothes. She felt very scared at the moment. Unconsciously, she followed it to the grave in the school, and when she got to the location of the grave, the hand just disappeared. Just as she was trying to understand the situation, she looked at the grave suddenly. The grave was very messy. Later she seemed to understand something, and ran to tell their class teacher to clean the grave. Because of her constitution, she often encountered this kind of thing since she was a child. She is used to such strange incidents. This was an incident that happened to her friend when he was working at Domino's. He was working in the Niasong area of Kaohsiung at the time. One night he received a call for delivery. The call was from a female customer. As the customer was telling him the pizza flavor and address, he kept hearing an old person's voice making noise, similar to the sound of static. He actually didn't think too much about it. He prepared to deliver the pizza to the customer according to the address on the navigation, but as he rode, he found something wrong. Why was the road getting more and more remote? There were no people in sight. There were even some abandoned houses by the road. He thought to himself, "This is not right. It shouldn't be here." Then he re-entered the address in the navigation. As a result, he found that the address displayed by the navigation for the second time, it was not here at all. In the end, he delivered the pizza to the customer based on the newly entered address, and when he was leaving, he thought about the old man's voice on the phone. Suddenly he asked a question, "Is there a guy in your house?" The female customer looked puzzled and said that only she herself lived in the house. The next day, he found the address of the abandoned house from memory and looked up related information online. Unexpectedly, the abandoned house on that remote path was actually a haunted house. So what was that old man's voice he heard, and why did the navigation guide him to that haunted place? Finally, this is the story of a friend living in Xindian. In May 2014, when she finished her cram school that day, It was already 11 p.m. Her father rode a motorcycle to pick him up that night, and when her father turned a corner, he passed a bus stop sign. Next to the sign was an abandoned basketball court. She suddenly noticed that there seemed to be a child squatting next to the bus stop, and that child was staring straight at her. The child was gray and wearing a diaper. There were blood on his head and body. At that time, she thought she was seeing things and closed her eyes in fear for a moment. Not long after, when she opened her eyes again, she found that the child was still there and still looking at her. Originally, she wanted to take a picture with her mobile phone, but her father rode past quickly. When she got home, she felt a chill down her spine and seemed to be haunted by sleep paralysis that night. The next day, when she passed that road again, she didn't encounter the child because she has a rather powerful inner spirit, so her life has returned to normal afterwards. After that, when she goes through that road at night, she still feels quite creepy.